A kiss from a stranger just saved my life, but it might have cost me everything else. When my ex-husband cornered me in that Manhattan bar, ready to destroy what little dignity I had left, I made a choice that changed everything. I asked a man I'd never met to pretend he knew me. What I got was Adrian Moretti, a kiss that stopped the room, and a protection I never asked for. Now I'm living in his penthouse with my daughter, surrounded by secrets and power I don't understand. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The bartender slid the whiskey sour across the polished wood without a word, and Ava Carter wrapped her fingers around the cold glass like it might anchor her to something solid. The bar was too loud, too bright, too full of people who looked like they belonged in places like this. She didn't. Not anymore. She'd come here because her friend Rachel had insisted. "You need to get out," Rachel had said, practically shoving Ava out of her cramped studio apartment in Queens. "You need to remember you're still alive." But sitting here now, shoulders hunched against the weight of designer suits and careless laughter, Ava felt more like a ghost than she had in months. The drink had appeared 10 minutes ago. She hadn't ordered it. "Courtesy of the gentleman at the end of the bar," the bartender had said, nodding toward a figure she couldn't quite make out through the crowd. Ava had almost sent it back. She wasn't that woman anymore, the one who accepted drinks from strangers. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the sheer anonymity of it. Maybe it was exhaustion. She'd lifted the glass in a vague gesture of thanks toward the shadowy corner and taken a sip. It was good whiskey, better than anything she could afford these days. Rachel was on the dance floor somewhere, moving through the crowd with the kind of easy confidence Ava used to have before the divorce. Before Ethan had systematically dismantled her life piece by piece, leaving her with nothing but a rusted Toyota, a daughter she'd fight the world for, and debts she couldn't begin to calculate. Ava took another drink. The music pulsed against her ribs. Then she saw him. Ethan Cole stood near the entrance, his arm draped around a woman who couldn't have been older than 25. Blonde, tall, wearing a dress that cost more than Ava's monthly rent. He was laughing at something she'd said, his head thrown back in that performative way he had, like he wanted everyone in the room to know he was having the best time of his life. Ava's stomach dropped. She turned away fast, hunching lower over her drink, praying he wouldn't see her. The bar suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. Her hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the bar top, trying to steady herself, but it was no use. Every nerve in her body was screaming at her to run. "Don't let him see you like this," she whispered to herself. "Don't give him that." But it was too late. "Ava!" His voice cut through the noise like a blade. She closed her eyes just for a second and then forced herself to turn around. Ethan was walking toward her, that same smug smile plastered across his face. The blonde trailed behind him, looking vaguely bored. He'd always had that effect on people. He made them feel small, like extras in the movie of his life. "Well, well," Ethan said, stopping just close enough to invade her space. "I didn't know they let just anyone in here now." Ava's jaw tightened. "Ethan, you look—" He made a show of looking her up and down, his eyes lingering on her clearance rack blouse, her worn jeans. "Rough. Things not going well?" She wanted to throw her drink in his face. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him exactly what he'd done to her, to Lily, to their entire life. But her voice wouldn't come. It was stuck somewhere in her chest, tangled up with all the rage and shame and grief she'd been swallowing for 2 years. The blonde leaned in, whispering something to Ethan. He laughed. "This is my ex-wife," Ethan said loudly, making sure people nearby could hear. "Ava, this is Madison. We're celebrating tonight. I just closed a deal with Harmon Industries. 8 figures. Madison extended a perfectly manicured hand. Ava didn't take it. "Congratulations," Ava said flatly. "You know, I almost didn't recognize you," Ethan continued, his smile sharpening. "You used to take better care of yourself, but I guess that's what happens when you—" "When I what?" Ava interrupted, her voice finally breaking through. "When I raise our daughter alone while you play house with your assistants," Ethan's expression darkened. "Careful, Ava. You don't want to make a scene." "I'm not making anything. You came over here." "Because I was surprised to see you somewhere like this. I mean, can you even afford a drink here? Or are you hoping someone else will buy them for you?" His eyes flicked to the whiskey sour in her hand, and something ugly flickered across his face. Oh, I see. Still working that angle. Heat flooded Ava's cheeks. She wanted to tell him the truth, that someone had sent the drink, that she hadn't asked for it. But the words felt too defensive, too small. Go back to your girlfriend, Ethan. You know what your problem is? Ethan leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a vicious whisper. You never knew when to quit. You fought me on everything, the house, the car, even Lily. And where did it get you? Look at you, you're nothing. Ava's breath caught. She could feel the eyes of strangers on them now, people pretending not to listen while they absolutely were. This was what Ethan did. He humiliated her, publicly and privately, because it made him feel powerful. And she was so tired of feeling powerless. Her eyes darted across the bar, searching for something, anything, that could shift the moment. That's when she saw him again, the man from the corner. He was watching her, not with curiosity or pity, but with something sharper, recognition, maybe, or calculation. He was tall, dark-haired, dressed in a suit that probably cost more than her car. There was something about the way he held himself, still, controlled, like he was used to people waiting for his permission to speak. And he was looking directly at her. Ava didn't think. She just moved. She crossed the bar in quick strides, her heart hammering, and stopped in front of the stranger. Up close, he was even more intimidating, sharp jawline, dark eyes that gave nothing away, a faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow. I'm sorry, Ava said quickly, her voice low. I know this is going to sound insane, but I need a favor. The man tilted his head slightly, his expression unreadable. I'm listening. My ex-husband is over there, and he's trying to humiliate me. I need him to think I'm not alone, that I'm with someone. She swallowed hard, hating how desperate she sounded. Please, just for a minute, pretend you know me. There was a long pause. The man's gaze flicked past her, landing on Ethan, who was watching them now with a frown. Then his eyes came back to Ava, and something shifted in them, something dark and amused. What's your name? He asked. Ava. Ava, he repeated, like he was testing it. Then he stood, and she realized just how much taller he was. He stepped closer, his hand lifting to brush a strand of hair away from her face. The gesture was gentle, almost intimate, and it made her breath hitch. Follow my lead, he said quietly. Before she could respond, he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't a peck. It wasn't tentative or polite. It was the kind of kiss that made the room disappear, firm and claiming and absolutely convincing. Ava froze for half a second, shocked, and then something in her surrendered. She kissed him back, her hands instinctively gripping the front of his jacket, and for one brief, impossible moment, she forgot where she was. When he pulled back, his hand still cradling her jaw, she could barely breathe. There, he murmured, his voice low enough that only she could hear. That should do it. Ava blinked, her mind struggling to catch up. She turned slightly and saw Ethan standing frozen, his face twisted with something between rage and disbelief. Madison looked equally stunned. The stranger, this man she didn't know, kept his arm around Ava's waist as he turned to face Ethan. His expression was calm, almost bored. Is there a problem? He asked. Ethan's mouth opened, then closed. For the first time in 2 years, he looked genuinely rattled. Who the hell are you? Ethan demanded. No one you need to worry about, the man said smoothly. Unless you keep bothering her. Bothering her? She's my ex-wife, and she's clearly moved on. The stranger's tone didn't change, but there was steel underneath it now. So maybe you should do the same. Ethan's jaw clenched. He looked at Ava, then at the stranger, then back at Ava. You've got to be kidding me. Him? Goodbye, Ethan, Ava said quietly. For a second, she thought he might push it further, but something in the stranger's gaze must have warned him off, because Ethan took a step back, his hands raised in mock surrender. Whatever, he muttered. Enjoy your rebound, Ava. I'm sure it'll last. He turned and stalked off, Madison trailing behind him like a confused puppy. Ava watched them go, her heart still racing, her hands still shaking. The stranger's arm stayed around her waist. You okay? He asked. Ava nodded, even though she wasn't sure it was true. Thank you. I I don't even know what to say. That was necessary, he finished. She looked up at him, really looked at him, and felt a flicker of unease. He'd helped her, yes, but there was something in his eyes, something watchful and unreadable, that made her wonder what she'd just gotten herself into. I should go, Ava said, stepping back. His arm dropped away immediately, no resistance. Thank you, really, for the drink and for that. You're welcome. She turned to leave, but his voice stopped her. Ava. She looked back. He's going to follow you, the stranger said calmly. Your ex-husband. He's not the type to let something like this go. Ava's stomach twisted. What? I've seen men like him before. They don't like losing control. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card, holding it out to her. If he gives you trouble, call me. Ava stared at the card. It was heavy, expensive looking. No name, just a phone number embossed in black ink. Who are you? She asked. The man smiled faintly. Someone who doesn't like bullies. Ava took the card, her fingers brushing his. Then she turned and walked away, her mind spinning. She found Rachel near the coat check, flushed and laughing with a guy in a leather jacket. There you are, Rachel said brightly. I thought you ditched me. You ready to go? Yeah, Ava said, clutching her purse tighter. Let's get out of here. They stepped out into the cold Manhattan night, and Ava pulled her jacket closer, trying to shake the feeling that someone was watching her. She glanced back at the bar, but the crowd had already swallowed the stranger whole. The card in her pocket felt like it was burning a hole through the fabric. The subway ride back to Queens was a blur. Rachel chattered the whole way, recounting stories from the dance floor, but Ava barely heard her. Her mind kept circling back to the kiss, to the way the stranger had looked at Ethan like he was deciding whether or not he was worth the effort of dealing with. By the time she climbed the stairs to her apartment building, it was nearly midnight. The hallway smelled like old cooking grease and mildew, a sharp contrast to the polished marble and champagne of the bar. Ava fumbled with her keys, her hands still unsteady. Inside, the babysitter, Mrs. Cho from 3B, was asleep on the couch, the TV playing some late-night infomercial. Ava paid her, thanked her, and locked the door behind her. Lily was asleep in the bedroom, curled up with her stuffed rabbit. Ava stood in the doorway for a long moment, just watching her daughter breathe. 5 years old, dark curls spread across the pillow, completely oblivious to the mess her parents had made of everything. Ava sat down on the edge of the bed and ran a hand through Lily's hair. I'll keep you safe, she whispered. I promise. But even as she said it, she could feel the weight of Ethan's threat pressing down on her. He'd been escalating lately, showing up at Lily's school unannounced, texting Ava at odd hours with vague, menacing messages. His lawyer had already hinted at another custody battle, one Ava couldn't afford to fight. She pulled the business card out of her pocket and stared at it. No name, just a number. What kind of person handed out a card like that? Ava set it on the nightstand and lay down next to Lily, closing her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd forget about the stranger. Tomorrow, she'd figure out how to deal with Ethan on her own, like she always did. But when she finally drifted off to sleep, she dreamed of dark eyes and a voice that said, "Follow my lead." The next morning started like every other. Ava woke to Lily's small hand shaking her shoulder. Mama, I'm hungry. Ava groaned and rolled over, squinting at the clock. 6:47 a.m. She'd gotten maybe 4 hours of sleep. Okay, baby, let's get you some breakfast. They went through the routine, cereal, cartoons, getting Lily dressed for kindergarten. Ava moved on autopilot, her mind still foggy. It wasn't until she was pulling on her own clothes that she remembered the card. It was still sitting on the nightstand, stark white against the scratched wood. Ava picked it up, turning it over in her hands. Nothing on the back, just that single phone number. She should throw it away. Instead, she slipped it into her wallet. The day dragged. Ava worked a shift at the diner in Astoria, serving coffee and eggs to the usual crowd of construction workers and cab drivers. Her feet ached, her back hurt, and she spilled orange juice on a customer's lap around noon. He yelled at her. She apologized. Her manager gave her a look that said, "One more mistake and you're done." By the time her shift ended, Ava was ready to crawl into bed and not move for a week. But when she picked Lily up from school, the teacher pulled her aside. "Mrs. Carter, I wanted to let you know Mr. Cole stopped by again today." Ava's blood ran cold. "What?" "He said he wanted to see Lily during lunch. I told him he needed to coordinate with you first, but he was persistent." "Did you let him see her?" "No. We have your custody agreement on file, but he wasn't happy about it." Ava's hands clenched into fists. "Thank you. I'll handle it." She took Lily's hand and walked out of the school, her mind racing. This was the third time in 2 weeks. Ethan was testing her, pushing boundaries, seeing how far he could go before she broke. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "We need to talk about Lily." Ava stopped walking. Lily tugged on her hand. "Mama, what's wrong?" "Nothing, sweetheart. Let's go home." But when they turned the corner toward the subway, Ava saw him. Ethan was leaning against a black Mercedes, arms crossed, watching them. Ava's heart kicked into overdrive. She pulled Lily closer, her mind scrambling for a plan. They were on a public street, in broad daylight. He wouldn't do anything stupid. He couldn't. But the look in his eyes said otherwise. Ethan pushed off the car and started walking toward them. Ava fumbled for her phone, her hands shaking. She pulled up her recent calls, but there was no one. No one she could call who would get here in time. No one who could... The business card. She didn't think. She just dialed. It rang twice. Then a voice answered, calm and steady. "Ava." She froze. He'd known it was her. "How?" Her voice cracked. "He's here. My ex-husband. He's... Where are you?" 33rd and Steinway, outside the elementary school. "Stay on the line. Don't move." The call didn't disconnect, but the stranger didn't say anything else. Ava gripped the phone tighter, her eyes locked on Ethan, who was maybe 20 feet away now. "Ava," Ethan called out, "we need to talk." "No, we don't." "It's about Lily." "You can talk to my lawyer." "I don't think you're in a position to make demands," Ethan said, his smile sharp. "Not when I'm about to file for full custody." Ava's stomach dropped. "You can't." "I can. And I will. You're barely scraping by, Ava. Living in that dump, working at a diner. You think a judge is going to leave Lily with you when I can give her everything?" Lily's hand tightened around Ava's. "Mama?" "It's okay, baby," Ava whispered, her voice shaking. Ethan took another step closer. "Just make this easy. Let me have her on weekends. We can work something out." "Over my dead body." Ethan's expression darkened. "That can be arranged." A car pulled up to the curb, a sleek black sedan with tinted windows. The back door opened and the stranger stepped out. He looked exactly the same as he had the night before, except now he moved with purpose. He crossed the sidewalk in 3 long strides and stopped between Ava and Ethan, his presence shifting the entire dynamic. "You must be Ethan," the stranger said evenly. Ethan blinked, clearly thrown. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone you're going to walk away from." "I'm talking to my ex-wife." "No, you're done talking." The stranger's voice didn't rise, but it cut through the air like a whip. "You're going to get in your car, drive away, and leave her alone. If you don't, we're going to have a very different conversation." Ethan laughed, but it sounded forced. "You threatening me?" "Stating a fact." For a long moment, the two men stared at each other. Ava could see the calculation in Ethan's eyes. He was weighing his options, trying to decide if this stranger was worth the risk. Finally, Ethan stepped back, his hands raised in mock surrender. "This isn't over, Ava," he said. "I'll see you in court." He turned and walked back to the Mercedes. The engine roared to life and the car peeled away from the curb. Ava let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. The stranger turned to her, his expression softening just slightly. "You and your daughter need to come with me." "What? No, I don't even know you." "Your ex-husband isn't going to stop," the stranger said. "And next time, I might not get here in time." "I can handle Ethan." "Can you?" He glanced at Lily, who was clinging to Ava's leg, wide-eyed and silent. "Because from where I'm standing, he's escalating, and men like him don't stop until they get what they want, or until someone makes them." Ava's throat tightened. She wanted to argue, to tell him she didn't need his help, but the truth was staring her in the face. She couldn't do this alone anymore. Who are you? She asked again. The stranger hesitated, then held out his hand. Adrian Moretti. Ava stared at Adrian's outstretched hand like it might bite her. His name settled in the air between them, heavy with implications she didn't understand yet. Adrian Moretti, she repeated slowly. The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it, like he expected her to know it, made her uneasy. Lily tugged on her jacket. Mama, I'm scared. Ava crouched down, brushing her daughter's hair back. It's okay, baby. Everything's okay. But her voice cracked on the lie, and Lily's eyes stayed wide with worry. Adrian lowered his hand when Ava didn't take it. He glanced down the street where Ethan's Mercedes had disappeared, then back at her. We shouldn't stand here. Your ex strikes me as the type who circles back. He won't, Ava said, though she wasn't sure she believed it. He's just trying to scare me. And it's working. Adrian's tone wasn't cruel, just factual. Look, I'm not going to force you into anything, but I have a car, I have resources, and I can make sure he doesn't get near either of you again, at least for tonight. Ava straightened up, pulling Lily closer. Every instinct screamed at her not to trust this man. She didn't know him, didn't know what he wanted or why he'd shown up exactly when she needed him, twice now. But Ethan's words kept echoing in her head. Full custody. You think a judge is going to leave Lily with you? Why are you helping me? She asked. Adrian's expression didn't change. Because I can. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have right now. He tilted his head toward the black sedan idling at the curb. My driver can take you home if you want, or somewhere else. Your choice. Ava looked at the car, then at Lily, then back at Adrian. She was exhausted, terrified, and completely out of options. Just for tonight, she said quietly. Adrian nodded once. Just for tonight. He opened the rear door of the sedan, and Ava hesitated one more second before climbing in with Lily. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Lily pressed against her side, clutching her backpack like a lifeline. Adrian slid in beside them, pulling the door shut. The driver, a broad-shouldered man with graying hair, didn't ask for directions. He just pulled away from the curb and merged into traffic. Where are we going? Ava asked. My place, Adrian said. It's secure. But your place? Ava's grip on Lily tightened. I thought you were just taking us home. I could. But if your ex knows where you live, and I'm guessing he does, then home isn't safe right now. Ava's stomach twisted. He was right. Ethan had shown up at her apartment before, pounding on the door at midnight, demanding to see Lily. She'd called the cops twice, but they couldn't do much without a restraining order, and every lawyer she'd talked to wanted a retainer she couldn't afford. I don't know you, she said again, quieter this time. No, Adrian agreed. You don't, but I know your ex-husband's type. And if you go home tonight, he'll be waiting. Ava closed her eyes. She wanted to argue, to insist she could handle this herself, but the truth was she couldn't. Not anymore. Ethan had money, connections, and a lawyer who specialized in making women like her disappear from their children's lives. Okay, she whispered, just for tonight. Lily looked up at her. Are we going to his house? Yes, sweetheart, just for a little while. Is he your friend? Ava glanced at Adrian, who was watching them both with that same unreadable expression. I don't know yet. The drive took 20 minutes. Ava watched the streets change from the crumbling sidewalks of Queens to the gleaming towers of Manhattan. The car pulled up in front of a high-rise that looked like it cost more per square foot than Ava made in a year. A doorman in a crisp uniform opened the car door before Adrian even moved. Mr. Moretti, the doorman said with a nod. Adrian stepped out, then turned to offer Ava his hand. This time, she took it. Her legs felt shaky as she climbed out, Lily clinging to her other hand. The lobby was all marble and gold accents, the kind of place where Ava felt like she was tracking dirt just by existing. A few people glanced their way, at Adrian mostly, with expressions that ranged from respectful to wary. They took a private elevator to the top floor. Lily pressed herself against Ava's leg, her eyes wide as she took in the polished mirrors and soft lighting. You live here? Lily whispered. Adrian glanced down at her, and for the first time, something almost resembling warmth flickered across his face. I do. It's really tall. It is. The elevator doors opened directly into a penthouse. Ava stepped out and froze. The space was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, sleek furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and a silence so complete it felt unnatural. Everything was meticulously clean, perfectly arranged, like no one actually lived here. "Make yourself comfortable," Adrian said, shrugging off his jacket. "There's a guest room down the hall. 2 beds. Your daughter can sleep there tonight." Ava set her purse down slowly, feeling like an intruder. "This is a lot," Adrian finished. "I know." He walked to the kitchen, a sprawling setup with marble countertops and appliances Ava couldn't even name, and poured himself a glass of water. "Are either of you hungry?" Lily perked up. "I'm hungry." Ava shot her a look. "Lily, it's fine," Adrian said. "I'll have something sent up." He pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. Ava watched him, trying to piece together who this man was. Everything about him screamed money and control, but there was something else underneath it, something guarded and deliberate. "Why are you really doing this?" Ava asked. Adrian set his phone down and looked at her. "You asked me that already. And you didn't answer." He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Let's just say I have experience with men like your ex-husband, and I don't like them. That's still not an answer. It's the one you're getting." His tone was final, but not unkind. For now, at least. Ava wanted to push, but exhaustion was starting to catch up with her. She sank onto the couch, pulling Lily into her lap. Her daughter was already yawning, her head drooping against Ava's shoulder. "Thank you," Ava said quietly. "For today. For all of this." Adrian's expression softened, just barely. "You're welcome." A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Adrian answered it, and a young woman in a catering uniform wheeled in a cart loaded with food, pasta, bread, salad, and something that smelled incredible. Ava's stomach growled despite herself. "I didn't know what you liked," Adrian said as the woman left. "So I ordered a bit of everything." Lily scrambled off Ava's lap and ran to the cart, her eyes wide. "Mama, look, it's like a restaurant." Ava stood, her throat tight. "You didn't have to do this." "I know." They ate in the dining room, another cavernous space with a table that could seat 12. Lily chattered between bites, asking Adrian questions about the building, the city, whether he had a dog. He answered patiently, his responses short but not dismissive. Ava mostly stayed quiet, watching the two of them. It was surreal. 12 hours ago, she'd been sitting in a bar trying to forget her life for a few hours. Now she was in a penthouse eating gourmet pasta with a man who'd kissed her like he meant it and then shown up to save her from her ex-husband. Nothing about this made sense. After dinner, Adrian showed them to the guest room. It was bigger than Ava's entire apartment, with 2 queen-size beds, an ensuite bathroom, and a view of the city that took her breath away. "If you need anything, I'm down the hall," Adrian said. "The door locks from the inside if that makes you more comfortable." Ava nodded. "Thank you." He hesitated in the doorway like he wanted to say something else. Then he just nodded and left. Ava helped Lily brush her teeth and change into the oversized t-shirt she'd packed in her backpack. Her daughter climbed into bed, already half asleep. "Mama?" Lily murmured. "Yeah, baby?" "I like him. He's nice." Ava smoothed the blanket over her. "We'll see." Lily's eyes drifted shut, her breathing evening out. Ava sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, just watching her sleep. Then she stood and walked to the window. The city stretched out below her, a sea of lights and movement. From up here, it looked almost peaceful. Almost. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her messages. 3 texts from Ethan, all sent in the last hour. "You can't hide from me. I'll see you in court Monday. You're going to lose her." Ava's hands shook. She deleted the messages and blocked his number for the 3rd time this month. It wouldn't stop him, it never did, but it made her feel like she was doing something. A soft knock made her jump. She opened the door to find Adrian standing there, still dressed but with his tie loosened. "I wanted to make sure you were settled," he said. "We're fine, thank you." He nodded but didn't leave. "Ava, I need to ask you something." "Okay? How bad is it with your ex?" Ava crossed her arms, suddenly defensive. "What do you mean?" "I mean, is this just about custody, or is there more?" She looked away. He's been escalating, showing up places he shouldn't, sending messages. His lawyer's been hinting at filing for full custody, and I can't afford to fight him. I can barely afford rent. And before? When you were married? Ava's jaw tightened. Why does that matter? Because I need to know what I'm dealing with. You're not dealing with anything, Ava shot back. This is my problem. It became my problem when I got involved. Adrian's voice stayed calm, but there was an edge to it now. So I'll ask again. What was he like when you were married? Ava wanted to tell him it was none of his business, but something in his eyes, something that looked almost like understanding, made her stop. He was controlling, she said finally, about everything. What I wore, who I talked to, how I spent money, and when I pushed back, she trailed off, her throat tight. He got physical. It wasn't a question. Ava nodded, not trusting her voice. Adrian's expression hardened. Does he still? Not since the divorce, but he doesn't need to. He knows other ways to hurt me. Through Lily. Yeah. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I'm going to help you. You already did. You got us out of there tonight. I mean, permanently. I'm going to make sure he can't touch either of you. Ava blinked. What? No, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm offering. Why? The question came out sharper than she intended. Why would you do that? You don't even know me. Adrian met her gaze, and for the first time she saw something raw flicker across his face. Because someone should have done it for my mother. The words hung in the air between them. Ava opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't know what to say. Get some rest, Adrian said, his mask slipping back into place. We'll talk more in the morning. He turned and walked away before she could respond. Ava stood in the doorway for a long time, staring at the empty hallway. Then she closed the door, locked it, and climbed into bed next to Lily. But sleep didn't come easy. Her mind kept circling back to Adrian's words, to the pain she'd heard underneath them. Whoever he was, whatever he did, he wasn't just some rich guy playing hero. He knew what it was like to feel powerless, and that scared her almost as much as it comforted her. The next morning, Ava woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee. For a second, she forgot where she was. Then it all came rushing back. Lily was already awake, sitting at the window and staring at the city below. Mama, can we stay here forever? Ava sat up, rubbing her eyes. No, baby. This is just temporary. But it's so pretty. I know. Ava showered quickly in the massive bathroom, using toiletries that probably cost more than her weekly grocery budget. When she came out, Lily had changed into the spare clothes from her backpack and was bouncing on the bed. They found Adrian in the kitchen, dressed in slacks and a white shirt, reading something on his tablet. He looked up when they entered. Good morning. Morning, Ava said, suddenly self-conscious in her wrinkled jeans and yesterday's blouse. There's coffee, and I had breakfast brought up. He gestured to the counter where pastries, fruit, and eggs were laid out. Lily ran over, her eyes lighting up. Can I have a croissant? Help yourself, Adrian said. Ava poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter, watching Adrian. He'd gone back to reading, but she could feel the tension in the room, the weight of everything unsaid. So, she started. What happens now? Adrian set his tablet down. Now, we figure out how to keep your ex-husband from destroying your life. And how do we do that? We start by getting you a lawyer, a good one. I can't afford. I can. Ava's hands tightened around her coffee mug. I'm not taking your money. Then call it a loan. Adrian, Ava. He looked at her, his expression unreadable. Pride won't protect your daughter. Let me help. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she didn't need charity, but the truth was, she did. She needed help desperately, and he was offering it. Why? She asked quietly. Why do you care? Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then he said, because I can, and because no one else will. It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was honest, and maybe that was enough. Okay, Ava said, but I'm paying you back, someday. Deal. Lily tugged on Ava's sleeve. Mama, can we go to the park today? Ava glanced at Adrian, who shrugged. I have some calls to make, but Marco can take you. He nodded toward the driver from yesterday, who was standing near the elevator. You don't have to. I know, Ava sighed. Thank you. Stop thanking me, Adrian said. It's getting repetitive. Despite everything, Ava almost smiled. They spent the day at Central Park, Lily running ahead while Marco followed at a discreet distance. Ava tried to relax, tried to let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. But every time her phone buzzed, her stomach dropped. She kept expecting Ethan's name to flash across the screen, kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. By the time they got back to the penthouse, the sun was setting. Adrian was in his office, a sleek room with dark wood and leather furniture, on the phone. He waved them in, mouthing 1 minute. Ava settled Lily on the couch with a book and hovered near the doorway, not sure if she should stay or go. Adrian ended the call and turned to her. I found you a lawyer. Her name's Rebecca Hahn. She specializes in custody cases. How much is she going to cost? Don't worry about it. Adrian? Ava. He stood, walking around the desk. Let me do this, please. She bit her lip. I don't like owing people. Then don't think of it as owing. Think of it as an investment. In what? He smiled faintly. In making sure your ex-husband doesn't win. Ava didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded. Rebecca's expecting your call tomorrow, Adrian continued. She'll need documentation, text messages, medical records if you have them, anything that shows a pattern of behavior. I have some stuff, Ava said. Not much. It's a start. Lily appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. Mama, I'm sleepy. Okay, baby, let's get you to bed. Adrian watched them go, something unreadable in his expression. As Ava tucked Lily in for the second night, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into something far bigger than she understood. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel completely alone, and maybe that was worth the risk. Later that night, after Lily was asleep, Ava found Adrian on the balcony, a glass of whiskey in his hand. The city lights glittered below them, and the air was cold enough to make her shiver. Can't sleep? He asked without looking at her. No. He gestured to the chair beside him. Ava sat, pulling her sweater tighter. I keep thinking this is all going to fall apart, she admitted, that I'm going to wake up and realize it was just, I don't know, a dream. It's not a dream. Then what is it? Adrian took a sip of his drink. It's a chance. Whether you take it or not is up to you. Ava looked at him, really looked at him. In the dim light, he looked younger, less guarded, almost human. Who are you, Adrian? She asked softly. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Someone who's very good at solving problems. That's not an answer. I know. They sat in silence for a while, the city humming below them. Ava didn't push. She had a feeling that whatever secrets Adrian was keeping, he'd tell her when he was ready, or maybe he never would. Either way, she was in this now, and there was no going back. The days blurred together in a way Ava hadn't expected. One night became 2, then 3, then a week. Adrian never pushed her to leave, never mentioned timelines or expectations. He just let them stay, like it was the most natural thing in the world to have a struggling single mother and her 5-year-old daughter living in his penthouse. Ava kept telling herself it was temporary, that as soon as she got back on her feet, as soon as the custody situation was handled, she'd find her own place again. But every morning she woke up in that massive guest room with Lily curled beside her, and every morning it got a little harder to imagine going back to the cramped studio in Queens with its broken radiator and the neighbor who screamed at his television until 2 in the morning. Rebecca Hahn turned out to be exactly what Adrian had promised, sharp, relentless, and expensive as hell. She'd taken one look at Ava's documentation, asked about a dozen pointed questions that made Ava's stomach turn, and then told her flat out that Ethan's case was built on intimidation, not evidence. He's banking on you not being able to afford a fight, Rebecca had said during their first meeting in her corner office overlooking the Hudson. That's his entire strategy. Wear you down until you give up. So what do we do? Ava had asked. Rebecca's smile was thin and sharp. We don't give up. That was 2 weeks ago. Since then, Rebecca had filed motions, subpoenaed records, and started building a case that made Ethan's lawyers scramble. Ava watched it happen from a distance, still not quite believing that someone was actually fighting for her. But the bills kept piling up in her mind. Legal fees, court costs, everything Rebecca was doing. Ava tried not to think about how much she owed Adrian, tried not to calculate the debt that was growing every day. He never mentioned it, never even hinted at it, but she felt it like a weight pressing on her chest. She wasn't used to owing anyone anything. Lily, on the other hand, had adapted to their new living situation with the easy resilience of a 5-year-old. She loved the penthouse, loved the view, loved that Marco would take her to get ice cream after school. She'd even started calling Adrian by his first name instead of the man or Mama's friend. Ava wasn't sure how she felt about that. She was in the kitchen making coffee when Adrian came in, already dressed for whatever it was he did during the day. He'd never told her exactly what his business was, and she'd stopped asking after the third evasive answer. "Morning," he said, pouring himself a glass of water. "Morning. Rebecca called. She wants to meet this afternoon. Something about Ethan's financial disclosures." Ava's hands tightened around her mug. "What about them?" She didn't say, but she sounded pleased. That should have been reassuring, but Ava had learned not to get her hopes up. Every time it seemed like things were going well, Ethan found a new way to twist the knife. "I'll be there," she said. Adrian nodded, then hesitated. "Ava, there's something else we need to talk about." Her stomach dropped. "What?" "Your apartment in Queens. You're still paying rent, right?" "Yeah, why?" "Because you're not living there, and you're not going back there." Ava set her mug down. "You don't know that." "Yes, I do. Ethan knows where you live. He's probably been watching the place, waiting for you to come back." "So what am I supposed to do? Just abandon it?" "No, you're supposed to let me buy out your lease and move your things here properly." Ava stared at him. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Adrian, I've already taken too much from you. You haven't taken anything. I've offered and you've accepted. There's a difference." "That's not how it feels." Adrian leaned against the counter, his expression unreadable. "How does it feel?" Ava looked away. "Like I'm losing control of my own life." The words hung between them, raw and honest. She hadn't meant to say it, but now that she had, she couldn't take it back. "I know," Adrian said quietly. "But right now, control is a luxury you can't afford. Ethan's going to keep coming at you until he either wins or someone stops him, and I'm the someone who can stop him." "Why?" The question came out sharper than she intended. "Why are you doing all of this? And don't give me that line about solving problems or helping people. There's more to it than that." Adrian was silent for a long moment. Then he pushed off the counter and walked to the window, his back to her. "My mother was married to a man like your ex-husband," he said finally. "Controlling, violent. He ran a legitimate business on paper, but underneath it was all extortion and threats. She tried to leave him 3 times. He found her every time." Ava's chest tightened. "What happened to her?" "She died when I was 12. Car accident, supposedly, but the brakes had been tampered with." His voice was flat, emotionless, but Ava could hear the pain underneath. "No one ever proved it, and by the time I was old enough to do something about it, he was already dead." "Adrian, I'm so sorry." "Don't." He turned back to face her. "I'm not telling you this for sympathy. I'm telling you so you understand why I won't let the same thing happen to you." Ava didn't know what to say. She'd suspected there was something darker in Adrian's past, something that drove him, but hearing it laid out like that made her chest ache. "You're not responsible for saving me," she said softly. "I know, but I'm going to anyway." Before she could respond, Lily came running into the kitchen, still in her pajamas, her hair a tangled mess. "Mama! Adrian! Marco said he'd take me to the zoo today if it's okay." Ava forced a smile. "We'll see, baby. You have school." "But it's Saturday." Ava blinked. Was it Saturday? She'd lost track of the days somewhere between legal meetings and sleepless nights. Adrian glanced at Ava. "Marco can take her if you want. Give you some time to yourself." "I don't need—" "Take the time, Ava." She wanted to argue, but the truth was she was exhausted. Bone-deep, soul-crushing, exhausted. And the idea of a few hours alone without having to be strong for Lily or grateful to Adrian sounded like heaven. "Okay," she said, "but just for a few hours." Lily cheered and ran off to get dressed. Adrian watched her go, something almost like fondness crossing his face. "She's a good kid," he said. Yeah, she is. She trusts you. I know. Ava's throat tightened. That's what scares me. What if I can't protect her? You can. We will. The certainty in his voice should have been comforting. Instead, it made Ava feel even more off balance. She didn't know how to accept help, didn't know how to let someone else carry the weight she'd been holding alone for so long. But maybe that was the point. Maybe she didn't have to know. Maybe she just had to let it happen. After Lily left with Marco, the penthouse felt too big and too quiet. Ava wandered through the rooms, her footsteps echoing on the hardwood floors. She ended up in Adrian's office, staring at the bookshelves lined with legal texts and what looked like financial reports. She pulled one down at random. It was a ledger of some kind, filled with numbers and abbreviations she didn't understand. She was about to put it back when a name caught her eye. Moretti Enterprises. She flipped through the few more pages, her pulse quickening. There were dozens of entries, all dated within the last year, all labeled with codes she couldn't decipher. But the amounts were staggering, millions moving in and out, transactions that spanned continents. Looking for something? Ava jumped, nearly dropping the book. Adrian stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. I was just... She fumbled for an excuse. I was bored. Clearly. He walked into the room and took the ledger from her hands, setting it back on the shelf. That's not light reading. What is it? Business records. What kind of business? Adrian smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The kind that keeps the lights on. That's not an answer. No, it's not. Ava crossed her arms. You know everything about me, my marriage, my finances, my custody battle, but I don't know anything about you. You know enough. Do I? She stepped closer. Because right now, all I know is that you have a lot of money, a lot of influence, and a lot of secrets. And I'm living in your home with my daughter, trusting you to protect us, when I don't even know who you are. Adrian's jaw tightened. I'm someone who's trying to help you. Why won't you just tell me the truth? Because the truth is complicated. I can handle complicated. Can you? He looked at her, really looked at her, and Ava saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear, maybe, or regret. What if I told you that the business I run isn't entirely legal? That the people I work with are dangerous? That getting involved with me could put you and Lily at risk? Ava's breath caught. She'd suspected somewhere in the back of her mind that Adrian wasn't just some wealthy businessman, but hearing him say it out loud was different. Is that true? She asked quietly. Parts of it. Which parts? Adrian turned away, running a hand through his hair. I inherited my father's business when I was 23. Most of it's legitimate, real estate, investments, that kind of thing, but some of it isn't. And the people who were loyal to my father expect me to keep things running the way he did. What does that mean? It means I make decisions I'm not proud of. It means I work with people who solve problems in ways you wouldn't approve of. And it means that anyone close to me becomes a target. Ava's chest tightened. Then why did you bring us here? Because keeping you at arm's length wasn't going to protect you. Ethan's not going to stop, and if I'd left you on your own, he would have destroyed you. Adrian turned back to face her, his expression raw. So I made a choice. I brought you here, where I can keep you safe, even if it means pulling you into my world. You should have told me. Would you have come if I had? Ava opened her mouth, then closed it. He was right. If he'd told her the truth from the beginning, she would have run. She would have taken Lily and disappeared, consequences be damned. But now? Now she was in too deep to walk away. What happens if Ethan finds out? She asked. About you, I mean. About what you do. He won't. But if he does, then I'll handle it. Adrian's voice was firm, final. That's what I do, Ava. I handle things. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he could keep them safe from whatever storm was coming. But the truth was, she didn't know if she could. I need some air, she said abruptly. Adrian nodded. Take Marco with you. I don't need a babysitter. You need protection, and until this is over, you're not going anywhere alone. Ava wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't a request. It was a line in the sand. Fine, she said. She grabbed her jacket and headed for the elevator, her mind racing. Everything she thought she knew about Adrian had just shifted, and she didn't know how to process it. He was dangerous. He'd admitted as much. But he was also the only person standing between her and Ethan, and maybe that was the most dangerous thing of all. Marco drove her to Central Park, staying a few paces behind as she walked along the paths. The air was crisp, the sky overcast, and Ava pulled her jacket tighter as she tried to make sense of everything. Her phone buzzed, a text from Rebecca. "Need to see you ASAP, big development." Ava's pulse spiked. She texted back, "What kind of development?" The response came almost immediately. "The kind that changes everything. Can you come to my office in an hour?" Ava looked at Marco, who was pretending not to listen. "I need to go to Midtown." He nodded and gestured toward the car. Rebecca's office was bustling when Ava arrived, assistants moving between rooms with files and laptops. Rebecca herself was waiting in the conference room, a stack of papers spread out in front of her. "Sit," Rebecca said, gesturing to a chair. Ava sat, her stomach in knots. "What's going on?" Rebecca slid a folder across the table. "Ethan's financials, or rather, what he claimed were his financials." Ava opened the folder. It was full of bank statements, tax returns, and investment records. "I don't understand. Your ex-husband has been hiding assets. A lot of them. Offshore accounts, shell companies, the works. He told the court he was worth about $2 million. Turns out it's closer to 15. Ava's head spun. 15 million? At least. And here's the kicker. Some of that money? It's not clean. We found transfers connected to a fraud investigation out of New Jersey. Nothing's been filed yet, but it's coming. What does that mean for the custody case?" Rebecca's smile was sharp. "It means we have leverage. Big leverage. If Ethan pushes this to trial, we expose everything. His hidden assets, his potential criminal liability, all of it. And no judge is going to give full custody to a man who's been lying to the court and potentially breaking the law." Ava's hand shook as she flipped through the documents. "How did you find this?" Rebecca hesitated. "Let's just say I had help from someone with access to resources I don't usually have." Ava's stomach sank. "Adrian." Rebecca didn't confirm or deny it, but the look on her face said everything. "He shouldn't have. He did. And honestly, I don't care how we got it. This is the break we needed, Ava. This could end the custody fight before it even starts." Ava sat back, her mind reeling. Adrian had done this. He dug into Ethan's life, found his secrets, and handed them over like it was nothing. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like she was losing control all over again, but maybe that was the price of winning. "What do we do now?" Ava asked. "We go to Ethan's lawyers and make them an offer they can't refuse. He drops the custody case, or we bury him." Ava closed her eyes. "Do it." When she got back to the penthouse, Lily was already home, chattering about the zoo and the penguins and the polar bears. Ava hugged her tight, trying to ground herself in something real and solid. Adrian was in the living room, reading. He looked up when she walked in. "Rebecca told you," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yeah." "And?" "And I don't know how to feel about it." Ava sat down across from him. "You went behind my back. I solved a problem. You invaded someone's privacy. Someone who's been terrorizing you for 2 years. Adrian set his book down. "I'm not going to apologize for doing what needed to be done. I didn't ask you to do it. You didn't have to." Ava's hands clenched into fists. "This is exactly what I was talking about. You're making decisions for me, taking control, because you're too scared to take it yourself." Adrian interrupted. His voice was calm, but the words cut deep. "You want to fight Ethan on your own terms, with your own resources, and that's admirable. But it's also going to get you killed. Or worse, it's going to cost you your daughter. You don't know that." "Yes, I do." He leaned forward, his eyes locked on hers. "I've seen this before, Ava. I watched it happen to my mother. And I'm not going to stand by and watch it happen to you." Ava's throat tightened. She wanted to yell at him, to tell him he had no right to make these choices for her. But the truth was, he was right. She'd been losing to Ethan for years, and it was only getting worse. "I hate this," she whispered. "I know. I hate feeling like I need you." "I know that too." They sat in silence for a long time, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Finally, Ava stood. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for what you did. Even if I'm angry about how you did it." Adrian nodded. "You're welcome." As she walked back to her room, Ava felt something shift inside her. She was still scared, still angry, still drowning in debt and uncertainty. But for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel completely alone. And maybe that was enough to keep fighting. The meeting with Ethan's lawyers happened 3 days later in a conference room that smelled like expensive leather and desperation. Ava sat between Rebecca and Adrian, her hands folded tight in her lap to keep them from shaking. Across the table, Ethan looked like he'd been carved from ice, pale, rigid, and barely containing his rage. His attorney, a silver-haired man named Richard Pembroke, kept glancing at the folder Rebecca had placed in the center of the table like it might explode. "Let's get to the point," Rebecca said, her voice crisp. "My client is willing to maintain the current custody arrangement, shared custody with primary residence remaining with Ms. Carter, provided your client drops his petition for full custody immediately." Pembroke shifted in his seat. "My client has legitimate concerns about the child's welfare. Your client has been lying to the court." Rebecca opened the folder and slid copies of the financial documents across the table. $15 million in hidden assets, offshore accounts in the Caymans, and some very interesting transfers that I'm sure the federal prosecutors in New Jersey would love to discuss with him. Ethan's face went from pale to red in seconds. "You had no right. We had every right," Rebecca cut him off. "These are discoverable documents that your side should have disclosed months ago. The fact that you didn't is grounds for sanctions at minimum. Criminal charges at worst." Pembroke picked up the papers, his expression darkening as he scanned them. He leaned over and whispered something to Ethan, who shook his head violently. "This is blackmail," Ethan said, his voice shaking with fury. "No," Adrian said quietly. It was the first time he'd spoken since they sat down. "This is accountability." Ethan's eyes snapped to him. "Who the hell are you?" "Someone who's tired of watching you bully women. You don't know anything about me. I know exactly what you are." Adrian's tone didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "And if you push this any further, I'll make sure everyone else knows too." The room went silent. Ava could feel the tension crackling like electricity, could see the war happening behind Ethan's eyes. He wanted to fight. She could see it in the way his jaw clenched, the way his hands curled into fists on the table. But he was also scared. Pembroke cleared his throat. "We'll need time to review these documents and consult with our client. You have 24 hours, Rebecca said. After that, we file everything with the court and send copies to the U.S. Attorney's Office." Pembroke's face went tight. "That's not enough time. Then work fast." Rebecca stood, and Ava followed, her legs unsteady beneath her. Adrian placed a hand on the small of her back, steadying her as they walked out. Ava didn't look back, but she could feel Ethan's eyes burning into her spine. In the elevator, she finally let herself breathe. "That was..." She couldn't find the words. "Effective," Rebecca finished. "They'll fold. Pembroke knows he's outmatched. What if they don't? They will. Men like Ethan only fight when they think they can win. Right now, he knows he can't." Ava wanted to believe her, but she'd spent 2 years watching Ethan twist every situation to his advantage, and some part of her couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Adrian must have seen it in her face, because once they were back in the car, he said, "He's going to try something." "What do you mean?" "Ethan's not the type to go down quietly. He'll sign whatever Rebecca puts in front of him, but he won't let it go." "So what do? "We stay ahead of him." That night, Ava couldn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying the meeting over and over. The look on Ethan's face when he saw those documents, the way Adrian had spoken to him, calm and cold and absolutely certain. She'd never seen Ethan back down from anyone before. Around 2 a.m, she gave up on sleep and wandered out to the living room. She was surprised to find Adrian there, sitting in the dark with a glass of whiskey. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. He glanced up. "Not really." Ava sat down on the opposite end of the couch. For a while, neither of them spoke. "Can I ask you something?" Ava said finally. "Sure." "What you said in that meeting about being tired of watching men like Ethan, was that just for show, or did you mean it?" Adrian took a sip of his drink. I meant it. Because of your mother. Partly. And the other part? He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I've spent most of my life cleaning up messes my father made, dealing with people he hurt, debts he left unpaid, enemies he created. And somewhere along the way, I realized I was becoming him, making the same choices, justifying them the same way. You're nothing like Ethan, Ava said. Maybe not, but I'm not a good person either, Ava. I've done things. He stopped, shaking his head. You don't want to know the things I've done. Then why are you helping me? Because maybe if I can stop one person from ending up like my mother, it'll balance the scales a little. Ava's chest ached. That's not how it works. I know, but it's the best I can do. She wanted to tell him he was wrong, that he wasn't beyond redemption, that helping her meant something, but the words stuck in her throat, tangled up with all the other things she didn't know how to say. Instead, she just sat there with him in the dark, and somehow that felt like enough. The next morning, Pembroke called. Ethan was dropping the custody petition. He'd sign a revised agreement acknowledging the current arrangement and agree not to file for modification for at least 2 years. Rebecca delivered the news with barely concealed satisfaction. He caved, completely. Ava sat down hard on the couch, her legs giving out. It's over? This part is, he could still be a pain about visitation, but legally, Lily stays with you. Ava pressed her hands to her face, trying to process it. After 2 years of fighting, of scraping together money for lawyers she couldn't afford, of lying awake terrified that she'd lose her daughter, it was over. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Thank Adrian, Rebecca said. I couldn't have built this case without what he gave me. After she hung up, Ava found Adrian in his office. He looked up when she walked in, and she didn't say anything. She just crossed the room and hugged him. He went still for a second, surprised, and then his arms came around her. Thank you, she said into his shoulder. I don't know how I'll ever pay you back, but thank you. You don't have to pay me back. Yes, I do. Someday. Ava, I mean it. She pulled back, looking up at him. I know you don't think you're a good person, but you saved my life. You saved Lily's life. That matters. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or disbelief, like he wasn't sure how to accept what she was saying. You're welcome, he said finally. Ava stepped back, suddenly aware of how close they were standing, how easy it would be to close the distance again. She cleared her throat and changed the subject. So what happens now? Now you figure out what you want to do with your life. I have a life. I work at the diner. Ava. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. You don't have to go back to that. You can do something else. Something you actually want to do. I can't afford to do something else. You're not paying rent anymore. You're not drowning in legal fees. You have time to figure it out. Ava wanted to argue, but the truth was she didn't know what she wanted. Before Ethan, she'd been working on a degree in art history. She'd loved it, the paintings, the history, the way art could tell stories that words couldn't. But when she got pregnant with Lily, she'd dropped out. And when the marriage fell apart, she'd stopped thinking about it altogether. I don't even know where to start, she admitted. Start small. Take a class. Visit a museum. See what feels right. It sounded so simple when he said it, so possible. Maybe, she said. Adrian smiled faintly. That's progress. The following week settled into an unexpected rhythm. Ava started taking Lily to museums on weekends, rediscovering the joy she'd forgotten. She signed up for an online course in art conservation just to see if she still liked it. And slowly, carefully, she started to build something that felt like her own life instead of the wreckage of someone else's. Adrian was around more than she'd expected. He worked from home most days, his office door usually open, the sound of phone calls and keyboard clicks a steady background hum. Sometimes Lily would wander in and ask him questions about his books or the city outside the window, and he'd answer with a patience that surprised Ava. He's really good with her, Rachel said one afternoon when she came to visit. She'd been shocked when Ava told her about the living arrangement, but after seeing the penthouse and meeting Adrian, she'd mostly just looked amused. I know, Ava said, watching through the doorway as Adrian showed Lily something on his tablet. So what's the deal with you two? There's no deal. Ava, come on. You're living with the guy. He basically saved your life. And he looks at you like what? Rachel grinned. Like you're the only person in the room. Ava's cheeks flushed. He does not. He absolutely does. And you look at him the same way. I don't. Ava stopped, frustrated. It's complicated. Why? Because he's. She lowered her voice. He's not what you think he is, Rachel. The business he runs, the people he works with, it's not all legal. Rachel's eyebrows went up. Seriously? He told me himself. And you're still here. I don't have anywhere else to go. Bullshit. Rachel leaned forward. You could leave any time you wanted. You've got a job. You could find another apartment. But you're not leaving because you don't want to. Ava opened her mouth to argue, but Rachel held up a hand. I'm not judging. I'm just saying, maybe stop pretending this is temporary and figure out what you actually want. After Rachel left, Ava couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Was she staying because she had to, or because she wanted to? And if it was the latter, what did that mean? That night, she found herself standing outside Adrian's office again. The door was half open and she could see him at his desk, frowning at his computer. You're going to wear a hole in the floor, he said, without looking up. Ava jumped. How did you? You've been standing there for 5 minutes. She stepped inside. I wanted to talk to you. About? About this. Us. Whatever this is. Adrian finally looked up, his expression unreadable. What about it? I don't know what we're doing, Ava said. I don't know if this is just you helping me until I get back on my feet, or if it's something else. What do you want it to be? The question caught her off guard. I don't know. Then maybe we don't need to define it yet. But, Ava, he stood and walked around the desk. You've spent 2 years having every part of your life controlled by someone else. Don't let me be the next person who does that. Figure out what you want, and then we'll talk. It should have felt like a brush off, but it didn't. It felt like permission. Permission to take her time, to not have all the answers, to just exist without someone demanding she explain herself. Okay, she said. Adrian nodded, and then, because the moment felt too heavy, she turned to leave. Ava. She looked back. For what it's worth, he said, I'm glad you're here. Her heart did something complicated in her chest. Me too. But the fragile peace they'd built shattered a week later. Ava was picking Lily up from school when she saw the car, a black SUV with tinted windows parked across the street. She wouldn't have thought anything of it, except it had been there the day before too, and the day before that. Her stomach dropped. She grabbed Lily's hand and walked quickly toward where Marco was waiting with Adrian's sedan. Marco, she said quietly as he opened the door, there's a car that's been following us. Marco's expression didn't change, but his eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. I see it. What do we do? Get in. Ava buckled Lily into the back seat and climbed in beside her, her heart racing. Marco pulled away from the curb, and the SUV followed. Mama, what's wrong? Lily asked. Nothing, baby. Everything's fine. But it wasn't fine. Marco took a series of turns, doubling back and weaving through traffic, but the SUV stayed with them. Finally, he pulled out his phone. We have a tail, he said. 3 blocks from the school. A pause. Understood. He hung up and met Ava's eyes in the mirror. We're going back to the penthouse. Mr. Moretti's waiting. When they arrived, Adrian was in the lobby with 2 men Ava had never seen before. They were both big, both armed, and both looked like they could break someone in half without breaking a sweat. Adrian's expression was tight. Get them upstairs. Marco nodded and ushered Ava and Lily into the elevator. Ava wanted to ask what was happening, wanted to demand answers, but Lily was already scared and she didn't want to make it worse. Inside the penthouse, she sent Lily to her room with her iPad and then went looking for Adrian. She found him on the phone in his office, pacing. I don't care what it costs, he was saying. Find out who sent them and shut it down. He hung up and looked at Ava. You okay? No, what the hell is going on? Someone's been watching you. I figured that much out. Who? Adrian's jaw tightened. I don't know yet, but I'm going to find out. Is it Ethan? Maybe, or someone connected to him. Why would he do this? He dropped the custody case because he's not done with you. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. I told you he'd try something. Ava's chest tightened. What do they want? Information, probably. They're watching to see where you go, who you talk to, building a case for something. For what? I don't know. But we're not going to wait around to find out. What does that mean? Adrian looked at her, and for the first time she saw something close to fear in his eyes. It means I'm getting you out of the city. Tonight. What? No, I can't just leave. Ava, listen to me. Whoever's watching you, they're not playing games, and if they're connected to my world... He stopped, his expression darkening. If Ethan found out about my business and told the wrong people, you and Lily could be in serious danger. What kind of danger? The kind that gets people killed. The words hit her like a punch to the gut. You said you could protect us. I can. But not here. Not when I don't know who I'm protecting you from. Ava's hands were shaking. Where would we even go? I have a place. Overseas. It's secure, off the grid. You'll be safe there until I sort this out. For how long? I don't know. Ava sank into a chair, her mind spinning. This was supposed to be over. Ethan had backed down. The custody battle was won. They were supposed to be safe, but they weren't. They never had been. What about you? She asked. I'll stay here. Handle things. Alone? It's what I do. Ava looked up at him, and the fear she'd been holding back finally broke through. I don't want to lose you. The words came out before she could stop them, raw and honest and terrifying. Adrian's expression shifted, something unguarded flickering across his face. You're not going to lose me, he said quietly. You don't know that. Ava, you're sending me away to keep me safe, but what about you? What happens if they come after you? Then I handle it. That's not an answer. Adrian crossed the room and crouched in front of her chair, his hands on the armrests. Listen to me. I've been doing this my whole life. I know how to survive. But I can't do that and keep you safe at the same time. So I need you to trust me. Get on the plane, go to the estate, and let me fix this. Ava's throat tightened. And then what? Then you come back, and we figure out the rest. She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him she wasn't leaving, that they'd face this together. But the truth was, she was terrified. For herself, for Lily, for him. Okay, she whispered. But you have to promise me something. What? You have to come back too. Adrian's expression softened. I promise. She didn't know if she believed him, but she nodded anyway, because what other choice did she have? The plane left at midnight. Ava packed quickly, throwing clothes and Lily's things into suitcases while Marco stood guard outside. Lily cried when Ava told her they were leaving, and it broke Ava's heart to see her so scared. It's just a trip, baby, Ava said, holding her tight. We'll be back soon. Is Adrian coming? Not yet, but he will. Lily sniffled. Promise? Ava kissed the top of her head. Promise. At the airport, Adrian walked them to the private terminal. Lily was asleep in Ava's arms, exhausted from crying. Adrian carried their bags, his expression unreadable. At the gate, he stopped. There'll be people waiting for you when you land, he said. They work for me. You can trust them. Ava nodded, her throat too tight to speak. Adrian reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch gentle. I'll fix this, Ava, I swear. I know. He hesitated, then leaned in and kissed her forehead. It was brief, almost chaste, but it made Ava's chest ache. Take care of her, he said. You too. And then she was walking toward the plane, Lily heavy in her arms, and Adrian was disappearing into the distance. Ava didn't let herself look back. If she did, she wasn't sure she'd be able to leave. The flight was long and silent. Ava stared out the window at the darkness, wondering what she'd just walked away from, and whether she'd ever see Adrian again. The estate sat on a cliff overlooking the Adriatic, surrounded by olive groves and stone walls that looked like they'd been standing since before America even existed. Ava stood at the window of her room, watching the sun rise over water so blue it didn't look real, and tried to remember what her life had been like before Adrian Moretti kissed her in that bar. It felt like a different lifetime, a different person. Lily was still asleep, curled up in the massive bed they shared, her stuffed rabbit clutched tight. The staff here, an older woman named Lucia, and two men who never gave their names, treated them with careful courtesy. But Ava could see the weapons they carried, could feel the tension beneath their politeness. This wasn't a vacation. It was protective custody. Her phone buzzed, a text from Adrian. "You land okay?" She'd sent him a message when they arrived 3 days ago, but this was the first she'd heard from him since. "We're fine." "What's happening there?" The response took a while. "Working on it. Might take longer than I thought." Ava's stomach twisted. She typed back. "How much longer?" "Don't know yet. Just stay put." She wanted to throw the phone across the room. Instead, she set it down carefully and went to make coffee in the small kitchen off their suite. The days crawled by. Ava tried to keep things normal for Lily. They explored the grounds, picked olives with Lucia, drew pictures of the sea. But at night, when Lily was asleep, Ava would stand at that window and wonder if Adrian was okay, if he was even alive. He texted sporadically, short messages that told her nothing, still working. "Don't worry, trust me." She wanted to scream at him, wanted to demand real answers, real information. But every time she tried, she'd remember the look in his eyes when he'd said goodbye, and she'd delete the message before sending it. 2 weeks in, Lucia found her crying in the garden. "Signora," the older woman said gently, sitting beside her on the stone bench. "He will come back." "You don't know that." "I do. I have worked for the Moretti family for 30 years. That man, he keeps his promises." Ava wiped her eyes. "What if he can't?" Lucia smiled sadly. "Then he will die trying." "That is who he is." It wasn't comforting. The break came 3 weeks after they'd arrived. Ava was helping Lily build a fort out of blankets when her phone rang. An unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Ava Carter?" The voice was unfamiliar. Male, American, with a hard edge that made her pulse spike. "Who is this?" "My name's Victor Reyes. I work with Adrian." "Where is he? Is he okay?" "He's fine, but we need to talk. Can you get to a secure line?" "What? No, just tell me." "Not over the phone. There's a computer in the estate office. Lucia knows where it is. Call me back from there in 10 minutes. He hung up. Ava's hands were shaking as she found Lucia and explained. The older woman's face went pale, but she nodded and led Ava to a room in the main house. It was all dark wood and old portraits, with a modern computer setup that looked completely out of place. Lucia showed her how to access the encrypted line, then left her alone. Ava dialed the number Victor had given her. He answered on the first ring. "Better?" he said. "Okay, here's the situation. Adrian found out who was watching you. It wasn't your ex-husband directly. It was someone he hired, a private investigator who got curious and started digging into Adrian's business." Ava's chest tightened. And the PI sold what he found to some people Adrian has history with, people who've been looking for an excuse to make a move against him. "What kind of people?" Victor hesitated. "The kind who don't leave loose ends." "What does that mean? Is Adrian in danger?" "He was, but he handled it." "Handled it how?" "You don't want to know." Ava's blood ran cold. "Is anyone dead?" "That's not a question I can answer." She sat down hard, her legs giving out. "When can we come home?" "Soon. Adrian's tying up loose ends. Another week, maybe 2. And Ethan, your ex-husband's going to have a very bad year. Adrian made sure of that." "What did he do?" "Let's just say the fraud investigation that was brewing. It's official now, and there are a few other complications Ethan's going to have to deal with. He won't have time to bother you anymore." Ava should have felt relieved. Instead, she just felt numb. "Tell Adrian to call me," she said. "I will." But Adrian didn't call. Not that day, or the next, or the one after that. And Ava started to realize that maybe he wasn't going to. Maybe whatever he'd done to keep them safe had cost him something he couldn't come back from. Or maybe he just didn't want to. The thought hurt more than it should have. On the 26th day, Lucia came to her room in the middle of the afternoon, her expression strange. "Signora, you have a visitor." Ava's heart stopped. "Who?" But Lucia just smiled and stepped aside. Adrian stood in the hallway, looking like he'd aged 5 years in a month. There were shadows under his eyes, a fresh scar on his jaw, and his clothes were rumpled like he'd slept in them. But he was alive. Ava didn't think. She just crossed the space between them and hit him. Ow! You don't get to disappear for a month and just show up like nothing happened. Her voice cracked. I thought you were dead. I'm sorry. You're sorry, that's it? Ava, I have been terrified, Adrian. Absolutely terrified. And you couldn't even call. He pulled her into his arms, and she stopped talking, just pressed her face against his chest and tried not to cry. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I couldn't risk contact. They were monitoring everything. Who? People who don't exist anymore. Ava pulled back, looking up at him. What did you do? What I had to. That's not an answer. Adrian's expression was hard. I know, and I'm not going to give you one. But it's over. You're safe. Lily's safe. That's all that matters. Ava wanted to push, but she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he was carrying. So she just nodded. Okay. Lily came running in then, shrieking with joy when she saw Adrian. He picked her up, spinning her around, and for a moment he looked almost happy. You came back, Lily said. I promised, didn't I? Can we go home now? Adrian looked at Ava. Yeah, sweetheart. We can go home. The flight back felt different, lighter somehow, despite everything. Lily chattered the whole time, telling Adrian about the olives and the sea and the fort she'd built. Adrian listened with the same patient attention he always gave her, but Ava could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his eyes kept darting to the windows. He was still on guard, still waiting for the next threat. When does it stop? Ava asked when Lily finally fell asleep. Adrian glanced over. What? The fear, the looking over your shoulder. When does it stop? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't. That's not a life. It's the only one I have. Ava was quiet for a long time. Then she said, It doesn't have to be. Adrian's jaw tightened. Ava, I know what you're going to say. That this is who you are, that you can't change it. But that's not true. You chose to help me. You chose to protect Lily. Those were choices, Adrian, which means you can make different ones. It's not that simple. Why not? Because the people I work with, the business I run, it's not something I can just walk away from. Why not? She asked again. Adrian looked at her, and she saw the war happening behind his eyes. Because they'll kill me if I try. The words hung in the air between them, brutal and honest. Then we figure out how to make it so they can't, Ava said. There is no we in this, Ava. This is my problem. Stop it. Her voice was sharp. Stop acting like you're alone in this. You're not. Not anymore. Adrian's expression cracked, just for a second. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. I'm asking you to choose something different, to choose us. And if I can't, Ava's throat tightened, then I guess we figure out what that means. They didn't talk about it for the rest of the flight, but Ava could feel something shifting between them, like a door that had been locked for years was finally starting to open. Back in New York, the penthouse felt both familiar and foreign. Ava walked through the rooms, touching surfaces, trying to remember what it had felt like to be safe here. Lily ran straight to her room, squealing with delight at seeing her toys again. Adrian disappeared into his office with barely a word. Ava gave him an hour, then went looking for him. He was on the phone, his voice low and tense. When he saw her, he wrapped up the call quickly. What's wrong? She asked. Nothing. Just business. Adrian, my father's sick. The words came out flat, emotionless. His doctor called, says it's time to come say goodbye. Ava's chest tightened. I'm sorry. Don't be. He's not a good man. He's still your father. Adrian's laugh was bitter. Yeah, lucky me. Do you want me to come with you? He looked at her, surprised. Why would you do that? Because you shouldn't have to do it alone. For a long moment, Adrian just stared at her. Then he nodded slowly. Okay. They flew to Boston the next day, leaving Lily with Rachel. Adrian's father was in a private hospital that looked more like a hotel, all white walls and expensive art. The old man was in a suite on the top floor, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily. He looked nothing like Adrian. Where Adrian was dark and controlled, his father was pale and wasted, his eyes roomy but still sharp. "So," the old man rasped when he saw Adrian, "you finally came." Victor said it was time. Victor's an optimist. I'll probably outlive him out of spite. His gaze shifted to Ava. "Who's this? A friend?" "Friend?" The old man snorted. "You don't have friends, Adrian. You have assets." "Maybe I'm changing." "People don't change. Not really." He coughed, a wet, rattling sound. "You'll figure that out soon enough." Adrian's expression was stone. "Is there something you wanted to say to me? Or did you just want me here to watch you die?" "I want you to understand something." The old man's voice dropped. "Everything I built, everything I did, it was for you, to give you power, protection. You gave me a prison. I gave you an empire. What you do with it is up to you." Another coughing fit. When it passed, his eyes found Ava again. "She's the reason you want out, isn't she?" Adrian didn't answer. "Let me give you some advice, son. You can't have both. You can't run the business and play house with some girl. The people we work with, they'll see it as weakness. And the second they do, they'll come for you. Then I'll handle it. You think you're smarter than me? Stronger? I think I'm not you." The old man smiled, but it was cold. "No, you're worse. Because you actually care about something, and that's going to get you killed." Adrian stood. "Goodbye, father." "Adrian?" But Adrian was already walking out, his shoulders rigid. Ava followed, her heart aching for him. In the car, he didn't say anything, just stared out the window, his jaw tight. "He's wrong," Ava said quietly. "Is he?" "Yes. Caring about someone doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. In my world, human gets you dead. Then maybe it's time to find a new world." Adrian looked at her, and something in his expression broke. "I don't know how." Ava reached over and took his hand. "Then we figure it out together." His father died 3 days later. The funeral was small, just Adrian, a handful of business associates, and Ava. No one cried. No one even pretended to be sad. They just stood there in expensive suits, waiting for it to be over so they could start fighting over the scraps. But something changed in Adrian that day. Ava could see it in the way he held himself, in the decisions he started making. He began distancing himself from the shadier parts of the business, shifting resources toward legitimate ventures. It wasn't fast, and it wasn't clean, but it was deliberate. People noticed. "You're making enemies," Victor told him one night when he came to the penthouse. Ava was supposed to be in bed, but she heard them talking in Adrian's office. "I'm making changes. They're not going to let you just walk away." "I'm not walking away. I'm restructuring." "They'll see it as the same thing. Then they'll have to adjust." There was a long pause. Then Victor said, "You're doing this for her, aren't you?" "I'm doing this for me." "Same thing." Another pause. "Maybe." Victor sighed. "Just be careful, Adrian. The higher you climb out of this, the harder they'll try to pull you back down." "I know." But Adrian kept going anyway. Over the next 6 months, he systematically untangled himself from the parts of his father's empire that would get him killed or arrested. He leveraged, negotiated, and when necessary, threatened. It was messy and dangerous, and there were nights when Ava would wake up to find him gone, only to discover him on the balcony at 3 in the morning with a drink in his hand and shadows in his eyes. But slowly, impossibly, it started to work. Ethan, meanwhile, had his own problems. The fraud investigation turned into charges. His assets were frozen. And the business partners he'd been so proud of wanted nothing to do with him. Ava watched it happen from a distance, feeling nothing. He tried to destroy her life, and now his was falling apart. She couldn't even feel satisfied about it, just tired. The custody arrangement held. Ethan was allowed supervised visitation, but he rarely showed up. When he did, Lily would come back quiet and withdrawn, and Ava would spend the rest of the day trying to make her smile again. "He asked me if I liked living with Adrian," Lily said one night as Ava tucked her in. Ava's stomach clenched. What did you say? I said yes. Was that okay? Of course it was, baby. He looked mad. He's mad about a lot of things. But that's not your fault, okay? None of this is your fault. Lily nodded, but her eyes were worried. Mama? Yeah? Are we going to live here forever? Ava smoothed her daughter's hair. I don't know. Would you want to? I like it here. I like Adrian. Me too. Do you love him? The question caught Ava off guard. She opened her mouth, then closed it, not sure how to answer. I think I might, she said finally. Lily smiled. Good. He loves you too. How do you know? Because he looks at you the way you look at me. Ava's eyes stung. Get some sleep, baby. After Lily drifted off, Ava went looking for Adrian. She found him in his office, as usual, but this time he wasn't working. He was just sitting there, staring at nothing. Hey, she said softly. He looked up. Hey, you okay? Yeah, just thinking. Ava sat down across from him. About what? About the fact that for the first time in my life, I actually have something to lose. Her chest tightened. Is that a bad thing? I don't know yet. She reached across the desk and took his hand. Adrian, I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever happens, whatever comes next, I'm not leaving. His expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across his face. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. I spent 2 years being terrified of losing everything, and I'm done being afraid. So whatever this is between us, whatever we're building, I'm in. Completely. Adrian stood and came around the desk, pulling her to her feet. You're sure? I'm sure. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like that first kiss in the bar. This was slow and careful and full of all the things they'd been too scared to say out loud. When they pulled apart, Ava was breathless. I love you, Adrian said quietly. I didn't want to. I tried not to, but I do. Ava smiled, her eyes wet. I love you too. Even though, all of it. He pulled her close, and for a long time, they just stood there, holding on to each other like they were the only solid thing in a world that wouldn't stop shifting. A year later, Ava stood in front of a mirror in a villa on the Amalfi Coast, adjusting the simple white dress she'd chosen. It wasn't a big wedding, just her, Adrian, Lily, Rachel, and a handful of people Adrian actually trusted. But it was theirs. You ready? Rachel asked, grinning. Ava looked at her reflection. A year ago, she'd been broken, desperate, terrified of losing her daughter to a man who'd spent years making her feel worthless. Now she was standing here, about to marry someone who'd seen all her scars and loved her anyway. Yeah, she said, I'm ready. The ceremony was short, held in a garden overlooking the sea. Lily stood beside them, holding a basket of flowers and beaming. When Adrian slipped the ring on Ava's finger, his hands were steady, but his eyes were wet. I promise, he said quietly, to choose you. Every day. No matter what. I promise the same, Ava whispered back. They kissed, and Lily cheered, and for one perfect moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Later, after the dinner and the toasts and the dancing, Ava and Adrian stood on the terrace watching the sun set over the water. You think we'll make it? Ava asked. Adrian pulled her closer. I think we already have. What do you mean? We survived, both of us. Everything that tried to break us. We came through it. That's not nothing. Ava leaned her head against his shoulder. No, it's not nothing. They stood there in silence, and Ava thought about everything that had led them to this moment. The bar, the kiss, the fear, and the danger, and the slow, painful work of building something real out of the wreckage of their pasts. It hadn't been easy. It probably never would be. But they'd chosen each other anyway, scars and all. And maybe that was what love actually was. Not some perfect fairy tale, but the willingness to keep choosing someone even when it was hard, even when it was messy, even when you didn't have all the answers. Lily came running out onto the terrace, still in her flower girl dress. Mama, Adrian, come look at the stars. Adrian scooped her up, settling her on his hip. What about them? They're so bright here. Can we make a wish? Sure, sweetheart. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, her face serious. After a moment, she opened them and grinned. Okay, I wish that we can stay together forever. Ava's throat tightened. She looked at Adrian, who was watching Lily with an expression so tender it made her chest ache. I think that's a good wish, he said. And standing there, the three of them together under a sky full of stars, Ava finally let herself believe it. Because sometimes, against all odds, the desperate choices you make in your darkest moments don't destroy you. Sometimes they save you, sometimes they lead you exactly where you're supposed to be. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they give you a chance to rewrite your entire life.